Hey gang, welcome back to Let's Level Up. My name is Rick, and today we're going to be talking about Nazca Games' Volt Robot Battle Arena. I don't know why I did that with my voice right there, but it just felt right, you know? Like Volt, it just feels right. This game is thematically a game where us as humans are controlling robots and battling an arena. It's almost as if the name tells exactly what we're going to be doing. Volt gets it right, and what we're going to be doing in this video is showing you a little bit of how it's played, some of the rules, some of the ideas behind the core mechanics of the game, showing you a bit of the features and components of the game, and then finally giving you our afterthoughts. I'd like to thank everybody at Nazca Games for being so awesome at Gen Con. You guys invited us in the booth. I know that's what you're supposed to do, but it really seemed like you were really caring about feedback and about what how your games are being looked at. And I said it before and I'll say it again, the projects that I really want to champion and the games that I really want to get behind are the ones where the guys behind the game seem like they really care. And all the guys I met at Nazca Games had that in spades. So Emerson, thank you so much for allowing us to look at Volt. Hope you guys like what you see. Volt Robot Battle Arena. This is an excellent game. This is a really fast capture and hold play style where essentially each player is going to remote control a robot in a battle arena. I mean, not to take the words right off the box. Let me pop this thing open, show you a little bit of the components really quick, and very briefly how it's played. One of the really neat things about Volt is that it comes with two double-sided boards here that are going to act as your arenas as you play the game. Okay, so the normal gray squares here are just normal movement, or rather are just solid surfaces of the arena where our robots can move normally. The black areas here are going to be holes in the floor or traps or something like that where our robots will actually fall through. Now in this game we'll be able to we'll have to really calculate where we're moving, but when we're firing on another robot, we can actually push them in a certain direction by shooting them directly in the chest, or shoot them in one of the legs, which will actually rotate their movement area and maybe get them to move in a spot they didn't intend to go. The orange area here in the middle is a repair zone, which is really nice. You can actually heal some of the damage that your robot has gotten. And then the other areas, marked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in blue, are actually where the control points are going to spawn each round. So at the beginning of the round, what you'll do is roll one of the d6s and then place the control point marker or the victory point on that desired zone, or rather on the zone. So if I roll a 3, I'm going to go ahead and put a victory point right here on the 3. Now if my robot at the end of the turn is the one that's sitting on the zone that has the victory point marker on it, we're going to go ahead and get to claim that victory point. Now it's going to be the first player to have 5 victory points with their robot is going to win the game. So essentially we're going to have to control the zone 5 times or gain additional victory points by using, or rather by destroying our enemies here in combat. So this is, you can see that there are quite a few different layouts here for these boards. Let me show you the other one really quickly. Something like that. So just depending on how you want to play the game or what type of mood you're in, you can actually tailor this board so it's a little easier or maybe a little more advanced, and you only have to rethink your movement. That's something that Nazca Games has done in spades in this game. Volt is very, very accessible to all players. My son can play it, some of my non-gamer friends enjoy playing it, but it's also something that I can scale up and have a really fun, strategic, and rewarding experience for somebody that's a little bit more of a hardcore gamer like myself. outside of the game board, our players are actually going to spend a lot of time behind their screens. Now, our screen is set up like this, and each player is going to take the color screen that matches with the color of their robot. So, for instance, red takes red, blue takes blue, green takes green, white takes white. Now, this screen, and something I really love that a lot of good games do, and Volt is no exception, is that the components of the game not only have a component functionality, but they also help teach the game and how it's played. The screen functions a lot like that. So on the left-hand most section of the screen, we're going to be able to see the 4 different steps of the game and how it's played. The middle section is actually going to be a targeting computer of sorts that lets us know what our shots are going to do depending on the die value we're going to roll, or rather going to assign. And then on the right-hand side, we have the order in which the dice are resolved. Which leaves me with this little baby right here. Now this is our targeting computer, or our joystick, or our game pad, however you want to think of it. This is what we're actually going to be manipulating as our human selves to control our robot within the arena. Now on the left hand side we have a section for orthogonal movement, and on the right hand side we have a section for firing different missile attacks, or different shots essentially on our opponents. Now everything is a straight line in this game, but you will notice on the firing mechanism we can do diagonals. So you don't have to worry about anything like line of sight, you don't have to worry about things like that. You essentially are going to go through there, assign your dice, and resolve them in the order on the right. So red dice are going to resolve first, then white, and finally blue. Now, dice are going to resolve, and you're not going to roll these dice. You're actually going to pick which number you want from each of those dice. So these are standard D6s, each with their own color code, and they go from numbers 1 through 6, of course. The lower values are always going to resolve first. And there's some neat rules on how ties are handled. So for instance, I believe movement is resolved before firing. So if we both have a red die assigned, and I assign mine on movement, and you assigned yours on shooting, and we both put a 2 there, my 2 is going to resolve before your shot 2 does. So I may be able to get out of the way before you actually go and end up hurting me. Let's get a little bit closer look here at the D-pad itself, and let me just explain how these things are going to resolve. As I was saying, we have 3 different dice here, red, white, and blue, and they're going to resolve in that order, again from lowest to highest. Now we can put these dice up to 2 on our movement, and up to 3, we only have 3, so up to 3 on our actual shooting. Dice cannot be stacked on top of one another, so we can't do something like this and just fire all 3 of our shots in one line. They have to be unique in that aspect of things. Now, if I wanted to move 3 spaces forward or up on the game board, and what I really like about this is that movement is unique to the player's position. So you don't have to worry about a north, south, east, west. If I go up on my side, means my robot is going to go this way because that's the direction that the controller is facing their robot. So let's say I want to go, and I want to move rather quickly. I want to go forward 3 spots. I'm going to put my red die on 3. Remember, red is going to resolve before any of the other dice. And then I'm going to go ahead and say I want to shoot in a couple different directions. Let's say I want to shoot to the left and to the right of my robot. So I'm going to essentially in this action move forward 3 zones and then shoot to the left and to the right. Now what's really neat is that during this phase of placing our dice, everybody's doing this at the same time, and then we will reveal all of our dice and how we have them placed within the same action, rather within the next action. So all of our dice are being revealed at the same time. So it introduces a really cool surprise element, and actually has a lot of different gotcha moments, which I think in a game like Volt is absolutely crucial because it makes things really, really fun. So let's actually resolve this really quick on the board. Okay, so just taking the other player out of the equation really quick, when we resolve our red 3, we're going to move it off our board, and we're going to move our robot up 3 zones, which is going to take us right there. Our white die is going to resolve next, and that means we're going to shoot a 1, and we'll get into targeting here in a second, but a 1 over to the left. So it's not going to hit anything because there's nothing there, And then finally, we're going to shoot a 1 over in the blue, and it's not going to hit anything because nothing's there. Now, what's going to be happening, and unbeknownst to us whenever we place our commands initially, is that our opponents are going to be queuing up their commands as well. So they may be something like this. They may remove 5 in, and then our shot to the right is going to go ahead and hit them, and it may destroy them. We'll get into damage and targeting here in just 1 second. But all of this is going to be going on concurrently with one another, and we're going to be resolving our dice in that order. So again, it makes for, if we have 4 different robots in this battlefield, there's going to be a lot of really, really cool, really tense moments that are going to be a lot of fun. And what I like about Volt is, again, how accessible it is. This game scales up. I have just as good a time as my son does playing this game, and it's one of those things that just, I think, is going to appeal to a wide variety of players, specifically families, and then guys that like to blow things up with robots, and gals, you're included in that as well. Yeah, so let's take a look at the firing and the targeting mechanism. So when we assign our dice to our targeting area of our gamepad, there are a couple things to be considerate of. One, that the values that we assign are going to be unique attacks that we're going to be able to execute. 2, the area, or rather the direction we're firing, is going to be always in a straight line, and we don't have to worry about things like line of sight. And 3, the value that we actually assign to these are still going to be resolved in ascending order. So 1 will resolve before 6. And this is going to actually add a lot of really neat things to this. So let's take a look at our actual targeting board here, which is the middle panel of the screen that each player is going to have. You'll notice that 1 is not on here. It starts with 2, and then 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now, a 1 is just a straight shot. It's the first shot that's going to resolve. It's going to do 1 point of damage, and there's nothing else additional that's going to happen. Each value after 1 is actually going to do something really neat. Now, if you do a 2 or a 3, it's actually going to target the arms of the robot. And when you target the arms of a robot, it's going to spin basically the torso of the robot 45 degrees to clockwise or counterclockwise. So for instance, let's say I shoot a robot with a 3, and my 3 resolves, and let's say that they have a shot to the right, and sorry, that's going to have to be something higher than that. Well, not necessarily true, because blue is going to resolve last. So we're shooting them with a 3, which is going to make their arms swing 45 degrees counterclockwise, which is going to take this die and put it into this position now. So where they were shooting directly to the right before, now they're actually shooting diagonally, which is something that could really, really throw off what their strategy was. The same goes with 4 and 5. Now, instead of targeting the arms with those values, you're actually going to target the legs of the robot. So this is actually, instead of doing 45 degrees, going to do 90 degrees, because we don't have the diagonal movements here. So again, in a situation where we shoot a, let's say we shoot a 5, and we're going to rotate this robot, their movement 90 degrees counterclockwise. So rather than going 1 point to the right when they move their robot, now they're going to be going 1 point to the forward position, and that could potentially move them into a hole, which will take them out of the combat round, or potentially destroy their robot, or bump into another robot, causing colliding damage. So there's a lot of things that you can do if you're targeting the arms or legs specifically. Finally, our last targeting here is going to be 6, and that's actually going to move the robots back directly 1 zone, which is kind of a push effect. So you could knock somebody again into another robot or into a hole, causing them to take lots of damage, which is a lot of fun when you do it. So here's a continuation of our play, and what we're going to do is go ahead and assign both attacking and defending here on our gamepad, just so that way you can see how it's going to work. So starting with the white robot, we're going to want to see if we can get in and move into this zone here. Now, there's a couple things to keep in mind. The way the dice are resolved is really, really important. Let's say we want to get and be really aggressive about moving over. So we're going to go over 2, right to the left, and then we're going to go 1 down. Whenever we resolve this, of course, it's going to make our robots go here and then here, and we'll be sitting on the point to be able to capture that point, and these 2 dice are resolved. Finally, we could have our blue die shoot to the right or something like that. However, when we do that, remember our opponents are going to get just the amount of opportunities to attack us as well. So if our opponent happened to move here and then shoot a 6 and knock us into that hole, they could then take the rest of their movement and go and claim that. So it's going to provide, again, a lot of really cool opportunities to do that gotcha. And I think that's something I really like. There's a lot of strategy that comes into Volt that some of the other robot battle games that I've seen out there just don't have in them. So what you're looking at here is the actual figures that come with Volt. You can see that each robot is essentially the same thing, just with a different color. These are actually really nice robot models. I would like to see, and maybe in the second edition of Volt, we can actually get some more uniqueness between the robots as far as their models go, but for all intents and purposes, this works perfectly fine. Again, a very, very nice little model. It fits perfectly within the square, so that way you don't have to worry about things sliding around or moving or just not fitting in evenly, which I think is really nice. Each robot is actually going to have 3 health points. Once a robot takes enough damage to reduce all those 3 health points, they're going to blow up. If a robot ever falls in a hole, it's going to blow up. When a robot dies, the player who caused the robot to die is actually going to get a victory point. And sorry, that's directly with shooting. If you force a player to go down a hole or bump a player into another player and it causes them to go down in a hole, there are some questions about how that is scored. But the guys at Nazca Games can, I think, direct you in a more suitable direction there, or rather a more finite answer. I think I like to play that if you cause a robot to blow up for any reason, you're going to get the point for that, regardless of the circumstances. So if I happen to shoot you and cause your movement to rotate your robot this way, and you drive into the hole whenever your movement resolves, that's not necessarily me killing you outright, so I don't think you would get the point as per the rules go, but it is something that I did that made you end up killing yourself, which I think is really neat. After each round, you're going to score depending on who's on the scoring zone, and then all robots are going to respawn. So you take some time off between rounds, everybody goes and they fix their robot, and you're going to be able to actually play again. And again, the first player to 5 points is going to win. You can't really see this too much, but I wanted to just exercise a point here. There are a ton of what Volt calls modules, which are basically enhancements that we can do to our robot, which can really shift the tide of combat. What I really like about Volt is how easily you can house rule some of these modules into play. Instead of rolling just once for your victory point, maybe you roll twice, the first being where your victory point is, the second being where a power-up goes. And so if the first player to move their robot through the space with a power-up will get one of these. And there are things like twin blasters, which allows your robot to, with a 3, 4, 5, or 6, deal +1 damage and a hit and do whatever the additional effect is that's going to happen from the table. There's also a force blaster, a mobility module, saw blades, gravity treads, grenades, there's mines, a magnetic field, a teleporter, a repulsion field, shock pulse, explosion core, repair module, crossfire blasters, tractor beam, and a reflector shield. There are so many additional things that we can add to this game that just keep adding to the replayability. When I was talking to the guys at Nazca Games at Gen Con, one of the guys that was demoing this said something that I thought was absolutely genius, and that's the thought of doing a campaign mode with Volt. So if you have the same gaming group and you play it over and over again, award some experience points or something like that, and allow people to tailor their robots so they actually start with some of these modules. I think that's something that can actually be very, very cool, and that actually continue to give you incentives to keep putting Volt on the table. Not like you're going to need much, because again, Volt is a very, very fun game. Well, that's it for Volt. As you can see, Volt is a fast-paced game where we're going to be able to essentially control a robot and battle against our friends. Now, it has a real big capture and hold mechanism built in that allows you to keep scoring victory points, but at a score limit of just 5 and getting victory points and actually killing the robots as well, or rather blowing them up. you get points really quickly. When you add 4 players to this thing, it's that beautiful sense of chaos that only imagining giant robots fighting does for you, at least for me. What I really like about Volt is how accessible it is. It is a game that I can play with my son, it is a game that I can play with all the members of my family, and also a game that I can play with some of my more hardcore friends and still have a very fulfilling and rewarding experience. Games like Volt are hard to find, and especially in the robot battle area, Volt stands, I think, ahead of anything else that I've seen, which is very cool. So, guys, Volt is going to play in about 45 minutes to 30 minutes. It's going to be for 2 to 4 players, and he recommended ages 13 or up. I think younger ages can really enjoy Volt as well. Just probably leave some of the more adventurous add-ons off to the side, and everybody's going to have a really good time with this thing. I say Volt is a must-have on your shelf if you're a fan of combat games, if you're a fan of robots, if you're a fan of really sweet chaos, addictive gameplay, and highly intense rounds. So Volt is one of those games that's going to be able to do that for you, I think. So hope you guys liked this video. If you did, please give us a thumbs up on the channel. Subscribe if you haven't already. But most importantly,